Good morning, Lionhearts. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion. What a beautiful day here in Los Angeles, California. It's gonna be kind of a slow morning because I have to work today, so I gotta run a few errands. I gotta go print off the menu for the catering event I'm working tonight and do a little bit of reading on what we're gonna vlog today. This should be a fun one though. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now. And of course, morning walks with this guy. Best buddy. So Chuck reminded me when he was dropping me off last night, he's like, don't forget to go get your free sandwich at Chick-fil-A tomorrow, just take your ticket. So we'll do that today too. It's almost always impossible to get a quiet shot. Every time I find a serene batch of trees or flowers or something, some truck goes driving by and now they've got this whole part of the road up there blocked off. I don't know what they're doing. It looks like they're repaving the road or something. They're always doing something. It looks like at least Batman's keeping his eye on this situation over here. I'm actually pretty excited about the job that I'm working today because today is the one that I was telling you is at the old Harold Lloyd estate. It's called Green Acres and I've never been there. Like I said, I don't think I'll get a vlog much about it or anything inside, but it's gonna be cool for me just to be able to walk around and know that Harold Lloyd and his family live there, because if you go back to when I did the Hollywood Land Antiques or Beechwood Antiques, when I did that vlog way early on, that store's no longer there, but the guy that used to run that store had one of Harold Lloyd's watches with his initials and everything on it, and it also came with a locket with a picture of Harold's oldest daughter when she was a baby inside. So that was pretty cool. I've always kept that in my mind, and now that I'm gonna go see his house and where they all live, it's gonna be pretty cool to kind of meld the two experiences together. So right now is a good time for catering, so I'm hoping to take on as much work as I can. So that might mean in the future I have to do like 2 or 3 vlogs a day and plan ahead for catering jobs and stuff. But if I can get a little ahead, that'd be great, especially after the engine and stuff. Now that's a great looking house. Yeah. So I actually have a date on Sunday, and the girl that I'm going out with, I went out with before, and she actually used to live in the Wonderland murder house, so maybe I'll get her to vlog that with me, but we're not going to do it Sunday. We're either going to go to like a haunted hayride or carve a pumpkin or something. I don't know what we're going to do yet. Something very Halloween though. I know you figured out what's about to happen. I know. Since I'm working, I've arranged for him to go and hang out with Pollyanna and Maverick, and now he's freaking out and he's all excited. He knows he's going, but he has to wait. He has to wait for 45 minutes till they get home, and he's not being very patient. Are you? Are you? You're showing the true you. The true self. You know you're going, you can't handle it. 45 minutes you have to wait, okay? Well, we're redeeming the Chick-fil-A coupon before I drop Jaw off. Pretty much just do everything right here into your car. You don't even have to get out. They take your order from the car, everything. Actually, thank you to the Sacramento Kings for missing the free throws. Well, today I decided to explore the life of maybe the woman who's considered the very first queen of comedy, Mabel Normand. She got her start as a Gibson girl at a very young age, age of 14, 15 years old. She was modeling hats and swimsuits and bonnets and various little advertisements for one of the most famous photographers of the day, Gibson. She eventually would end up working at Vitagraph Studios in New York, which is where she was from, in Staten Island, and she would meet Max Sennett. At the age of 16 to 17, she'd start dating Max Sennett, who was 28 years old. Mac would eventually, shortly thereafter, take off to Hollywood, and Mabel would become a bit of a star in New York. But as Mac would get things together out here in Hollywood, he would eventually call Mabel to come and become the star of the Keystone Productions. Now here with Mac Sennett, Mabel would become basically the heartbeat of Keystone Productions. She would be the person who lifted everyone's spirits, brought out the best in everyone, made the great comedy, made people laugh around her, and just made the movies just better because she was in them. She would become the biggest star at Keystone and would actually help launch the careers of Fatty Arbuckle and Charlie Chaplin. And it's actually said that when Charlie Chaplin was signed on to star with Mabel Normand, after the first picture, Mac Sennett actually thought maybe he had made a mistake and wanted to fire Charlie, and it's believed that Mabel begged to get a second chance for Charlie and also requested to write and direct some of the future pictures that she and Charlie would do together. Now I've already vlogged the story about how the engagement of Mabel Normand and Mac Sennett ended, so if you want to see that, just look through my archives. But basically, Mac was caught right before the wedding cheating on Mabel with Mae Bush, and through this, Mabel used this as a way to end up leaving Mac Sennett Productions. She would get him to not only fund a studio for her, but also to fund her next upcoming picture, and then she would take off and leave him once that was finished. The picture was actually called Mickey. Would take off and leave him and go work for Sam Goldwyn Pictures. And through Goldwyn, she would be a huge success, but a lot of people believe that the end of her engagement to Mac Sennett kind of sent her into a weird tailspin where she became a notorious party animal, got involved in pretty heavy drugs. In fact, they said that eventually her partying would become so well known that even though Sam Goldwyn was making a lot of money off of her, he would start looking at ways of possibly getting rid of her. And so he ends up releasing her. A man named William Desmond Taylor, who was a director at the time, decides he wants to help her. He actually helps her get into a drug treatment program and becomes a mentor to her. She had never really had a great schooling, and he kind of helped her work on reading and just cleaning up her life. And then one night in 1922, she's visiting him at his apartment, and he ends up, after she leaves, he ends up dead, shot in his room. And despite the fact there was very little evidence, the media went after her. Now in this day and age, all the publicity for her partying and then this scandal as well as the Mac Sennett scandal, it started to take its toll on her career, and people decided they kind of didn't want to hire her anymore. And so she actually, after the William Desmond Taylor incident, she would go into seclusion in a house outside of Los Angeles before eventually coming back. And once she came back into living in Los Angeles, she ended up getting involved in another scandal. And it was actually out of her control. She had went into the hospital for appendicitis or a burst appendix, and while she was in there being treated, a woman claimed that Mabel Normand had been involved in adultery with her husband in the hospital, but only verbally. Said that because Mabel Normand was talking to him, there was an alienation of affection, and so she tries to sue Mabel Normand. Mabel Normand ends up fighting it, winning. However, the damage was done to her career, and then she ended up doing a countersuit, and Mabel somehow lost the countersuit. Now you'd think through all of this that the hardship would eventually end, but it doesn't, because her partying consistently went on, and she ended up having a drunken night one night with a millionaire in Hollywood named Cortland Dines. Apparently she had told her chauffeur, if I get too drunk, take me home, get me out of there. And when he tried to do that, she didn't want to go. Apparently Cortland had made some sort of disparaging comments about Mabel, and Cortland ended up getting shot that night. Mabel's driver that night pulled out a gun, shot him. The driver was eventually cleared, however the gun belonged to Mabel, and so her name was once again in the papers for negative things. Now, Mabel only owned 2 homes in her whole life. She owned one in Staten Island, and then she owned this home right here on Camden. There's actually a pretty famous postcard of her sitting in a car with her chauffeur parked right out here out front, and I'll go across the street and match it up for you. Now, the photo from the postcard would have actually been taken somewhere right around here, and I'll walk around and kind of show you a view from the house through the gates. But that shrubbery wasn't there, none of that stuff was there. And this was the last house of Mabel Norman. Now, Mabel would eventually end up in the hospital once again, this time for pneumonia, and while she was in there being treated for pneumonia, they realized that she actually had tuberculosis, and she would end up battling tuberculosis for the next 3 years of her life. For the next 2 years, she would remain in this house, and for the last year of her life, she would actually remain in a sanitarium. She, one drunken night, married an actor named Lou Cody, and it was one of those kind of shotgun things where supposedly they had woken up just of the peace in the middle of the night, and they had gotten married, and then the next day thought maybe it was a bad idea, but they wanted to give it a try anyway. She actually still lived in this house. He lived in a house actually in the same neighborhood just a few streets away, and when she eventually passed away in 1930 at the age of 38 years old, her final grave would actually have not only the wrong birth date, it would say that she was born in 1895, which wasn't true, it was actually 1892, but it would also have her full name of Mabel Norman Cody. Now, like I said, Mabel was extremely instrumental in the careers of Charlie Chaplin. In fact, when she made her first pictures with Charlie Chaplin, he actually was said to have fallen in love with her, but she didn't feel the same. If you watch any of Mabel's movies, I think you'll understand what she brought to the screen and why she was so lovable. She had this beautiful look to her, and she was very outgoing. I mean, extremely outgoing. They said that was, in fact, what was so unique and interesting to her. They actually say that Mabel was the very first woman on film to actually portray this bubbly personality, almost an independent personality, without kind of the man being the centerpiece. So in the end, the woman who started out possibly being responsible for why women in comedy became so sought after in that day, people like Thelma Todd and eventually people like Carole Lombard, ended up having a very tumultuous life and ended up dying a really, really lonely death at the age of 38 years old. Alright, now I gotta head to work. There's the Beverly Hills Hotel straight ahead. Well, Lionhearts, I am done with work. Boy, do I have a lot to tell you. Okay, first off, I couldn't film anything at Green Acres, Harold Lloyd's old estate. I just didn't want to risk it. They had a lot of security. They even as a caterer, they had my name on a list. They had to check me in, they checked my ID, all that stuff. So I just didn't want to mess with it. Wow, but the grounds were beautiful. The first thing I saw when I went in was the little carousel for Harold Lloyd's kids right in the little playground area. And then right next to that was this whole area that he had put like little Hansel and Gretel houses with slides coming out of it. And then he had topiary of dinosaurs in there. Obviously Harold Lloyd doesn't own it now, but I mean, the man who owns it now, I was told, is the guy who owns Kroger and Ralph's grocery stores, and apparently he throws like galas and different things like that all the time. What it was tonight was a fundraiser for AMFAR, which is for AIDS research, and they've been doing it for years. So just to let you in on what I saw and who I saw, Sean Penn was there, Julia Roberts was there, Goldie Hawn was there. A lot of big industry people like David Katzenberg, and well, there were two musical performances. The first one was Chris Martin from Coldplay. This was actually it was like only 300 people kind of event, so it was big but not that big considering who all was there. The last performance of the night was actually Fergie. She did like 5 songs. But the honoree for tonight was Julia Roberts. They were giving her a big award, and the person that they chose to introduce her was Tom Hanks. So Tom Hanks came out and did about 10 minutes off the cuff of just honoring Julia Roberts and really made some hilarious jokes. I wasn't up there for the whole auction, but I guess one of the things that was donated was like a lunch with Julia Roberts and Tom Hanks that Julia Roberts had donated. And so when Tom Hanks got up there, he goes, "I'm just telling you guys all right now, if I'm going to this lunch, this is not going to be endive leaves and sprinkled with lemon juice. We're having barbecue, we're having coleslaw, we're eating baked beans so I can be farting the whole time, and you better have good anecdotes because I'm going to sit there and not say anything." I mean, he was hilarious. He was joking, and then he started saying, like, you know, we used to, like, talk about everything in superlatives, and he said, you know, you used to always say, this person is the Michael Jordan of, you know, like, of whatever it is they did because Michael Jordan was the greatest. And he goes, but now Michael Jordan doesn't play anymore, so you don't say that anymore. So he started saying, like, this person is the Julia Roberts of, and he was doing that all night. He was actually really funny. So it was a great time. The house was amazing. The grounds were amazing. There were 2 or 3 basketball courts in various sections of the property. There is a full-on soccer field, a swimming pool, tennis courts. I mean, it was just beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. Check it out online. I'm sure there's pictures of the inside somewhere, but I wanted to at least tell you what I saw, who I saw, and getting to see Tom Hanks for me was like a real pleasure because I had just seen Saving Mr. Banks on my way back from Budapest on the plane, and he was so good, and he's been so good in everything. And of course, the reason they kind of had him out there was because he's made movies with Julia Roberts, and he won an Oscar for Philadelphia, and they mentioned that. They said back-to-back Oscar winner, so there you go. That was my night. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed seeing Mabel Normand's only-ish and last home. And I want to close it out by saying thank you to everybody that watched, and thank you to Annabelle for becoming my newest Patreon. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a great night. Goodbye.